Allan, why do we live in a society that makes it so hard for human beings to be connected with spirituality?
I don't know for sure. I can only give you the answer that I think makes sense. And so I'll take it from. Excuse me.
Bless you. Bless you again.
Excuse me. And so I'll take it from two angles. Let's say, for example, that we knew that the physical realm was nothing more than a training ground by which our soul could evolve. And that the real realm from which we emanate is the spiritual realm. And that this is just a temporary visiting place. If we had full awareness that this is just temporary, you could argue that it'd be very hard for people to stay motivated and connected. And so, for example, if things were really challenging, if people were unhealthy, if they were dealing with all sorts of natural disasters, whatever it may be, they may say, you know what, this is not what I was expecting. I'm going to just get out. And it'd be very easy for people to say, I got to go. But by virtue of having full spiritual amnesia, which is not necessarily having the consciousness of where we come from, people take this life very seriously. Some take it too seriously, and they're willing to kill and to steal and to hurt others because they're so determined by ego to get what they need. Because they're so sure that it's only one life to live, you got to do everything you can. And so we have enough spiritual leaders who try to bring enough awareness and consciousness to try to reinforce a degree of balance. So although most people see this life as the only life, there's enough consciousness that will prevent us from losing sight in one way or another of where we've come from. Follow it?
Yeah. But what if everyone thought that this wasn't the only life?
Yeah, then there would be limited motivation to do anything.
There would be motivation to
Limited
take
motivation.
care of each other.
No, so, but the human experience is a difficult one. This is the realm of suffering. No matter how you cut it, the physical body only deteriorates more, right? The emotional wellness, the cognitive function, all those are subjected to damage or deterioration. Most people reflect back on their youth as some of their happiest years. And they find with every year that passes, they laugh a little bit less, life becomes more serious. They may be better equipped to handle the adversity that they face, but they're ultimately enjoying things less as responsibilities build up, or as their physical body starts to deteriorate. So you can still, the beauty of the human experience is that communities, family and then communities when healthy, do a wonderful job naturally taking care of each other. One of the strongest bonds anywhere is between mother and child, or between parents and children. And it's beautiful. But if there is too much materialism or ego in the mix, combined with too many unimportant or otherwise distracting undertakings and activities, you start to break down those bonds. And the questions of what's really important starts to get called into question in the minds of most. And as a consequence, the family unit deteriorates, the community connections and bonds deteriorate. So the instinctive nature to be in tribal packs, to look after each other, starts to break apart. And as it starts to break apart, without a higher consciousness, without a greater awareness, you're just left stuck fighting for the ego and the self. And that becomes a really tough downward spiral. So would it be better if we had a greater awareness of consciousness? Absolutely. But is it possible to live a very complete, happy, healthy life without full consciousness? Absolutely. It just requires connections with others. And those others have to be in a healthy place. For generations, large families throughout the world found great degrees of happiness. And even still today, people will tell you that they're happy. People will tell you that they live fulfilled lives.
But what do you think meaning, what do you think meaning is in life? Don't you think it's meaning that leads to one's happiness?
Yeah, but you have to
Purpose?
recognize everybody's at a different stage in their natural evolution, their spiritual evolution. So whereas some people are still chasing the status, the promotion, I got to get a beautiful wife that I can show off. I've got to find my dream job. I need to take pictures of my next vacation, get it up on Instagram, whatever it is that motivates people. As egocentric as those motivations may be, if their journey, if they're at that point in their evolution that has them chasing those external joys, those external satisfactions, they may need to achieve them only to realize that it wasn't their source of happiness, only to realize that the fulfillment that they were expecting didn't materialize. And some of them will see that and go inward and start to ask more introspective questions of where their happiness really comes from. Others will continue to chase other things. Okay, that wasn't the right man for me, I've got to find a different man. Or the plastic surgery I had done didn't get me where I wanted to be, I need more plastic surgery. Whatever it is, because beauty is their source of happiness, because status, because the financial success, whatever it may be, the externals will eventually expire. They'll eventually realize that their true wellness, their true sense of self, doesn't come from anything that they can touch. It's not something they can measure. It's not a tangible source. It doesn't mean that they're ready to go and abandon it. If there's a calling to go and pursue those material things, it's because where they are in their life is calling them into that space. Where they are in their spiritual evolution is calling them to the material.
But does that mean that them being unconscious makes them happy?
No. So, and happiness, even the term happiness, is really about moving to a state of acceptance. It's merely moving to a state of tranquility. It's really moving to a state where you're no longer suffering. So the earlier you are in your spiritual evolution, the more you'll suffer. The more you feel that your worth is a function of the things you can measure, which is your bank account, your job, the more you're certain that who you are as a person is the ratio of the people following you and the ones you're following on Instagram, the more likely you are to remain unfulfilled or dissatisfied or unbalanced or whatever adjective you want to throw at it. But it's part of your journey to seek that. And at some point, maybe in this incarnation, maybe in the next, you'll start to get deeper with what it is to define you, with what it is that really is important to you. And when you get into that space, it's going to start to move to the things that you can't measure. It's going to be things like love and compassion, acceptance. I had to evolve through it myself. My own pursuits in my 20s were far more materialistic. Somewhere in my mid-30s, I started to wobble badly. And even though I never pursued the physical items, I pursued the financial independence, and I